Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm Hawa Pertiwi. I'm English Education Department Class A 2019. I am from Group 5. On this video, we're going to talk about Chomsky Universal Grammar and the birth of Psycholinguistics. Okay, let's get started. Okay, the first slide about what is universal grammar. Universal grammar claims that all human beings inherit a universal set of universality which is control the shape of human language can take, which is are what make human language similar to one others. Universal grammar or meta grammar is a theory in linguistics proposing that the ability to learn grammar is hardwired into the brain, and as opposed to other grammars, namely prescriptive, description, and pedagogical. Okay, about prescriptive of linguistic prescription. Prescription is the establishment of rules defining preferred or correct usage of language. These rules may address such linguistic aspects as spelling, pronunciation, vocabulary, syntax, and semantics. Sometimes informed by linguistic theorems such as normative practice, often suggests that some usage are incorrect, inconsistent, logical, like commutative effect, or are of low aesthetic value, even in cases where such use is more common than the prescribed usage. They may also include judgments on socially proper and politically correct language use. About description or descriptive linguistics is the work of objectively analyzing and describing how language is actually used or how it was used in the past by a speech community. All academic research in linguistics is a descriptive. Like all other scientific disciplines, it seeks to describe reality without the bias of preconceived ideas about how it ought to be. Modern descriptive linguistics is based on a structural approach to language as exemplified in the work of Leonard Bloomfield and others. This type of linguistics utilizes different methods in order to describe a language, such as basic data collection and different types of allocation methods. Okay, about pedagogical grammar. A pedagogical grammar is a modern approach in linguistics intended to aid in teaching an additional language. The method of teaching is divided into the descriptive, grammatical analysis, and the prescriptive, the articulation of a set of rules, following an analysis of the context in which it's to be used. One grammatical form or arrangement of words will be determined to be the most appropriate. It helps in learning the grammar of foreign language. Pedagogical grammar is typically require rules that are definitive, coherent, non-technical, cumulative, and heuristic. Okay, let's move to the next slide about the basic postulate of universal grammar is that certain set of structural rules are innate to humans, independent of sensory experience, with more linguistic stimulus received in the course of physiological development, children then adopt specific syntactic rules that conform to universal grammar. The theory of universal grammar proposed that if human beings are brought up under normal conditions, then they will always develop language with certain properties, uh, distinguishing noun from verbs or distinguishing function word from content words. Okay. The next slide, Chomsky evidently development of language in the individual must involve three factors, namely genetic endowment, external data, and principles. Okay, about genetic endowment, we just set limits on the attainable language, thereby making language acquisition possible. About external data, convert to the experience that selects one or another language within a narrow range. Principle not specific to faculty of language. Okay, the next slide about principles and parameters of universal grammar. Principle and parameters is a framework within generative linguistics in which the syntax of a natural language is described in accordance with general principle, abstract rules or grammars, and specific parameters is makers switches that for particular language are either turned on or off. Okay. Principle and parameters. Principle and parameters was largely formulated by the linguistic Noam Chomsky and Howard Lasnik. Principle and parameters as a grammar framework is also known as government and binding theory. Okay, let's move to the next slide about different hypotheses. Chomsky, Husserl, and Fichte present the three leading hypotheses for how language evolved and brought humans to the point where we have a universal grammar. There are three hypotheses, namely, the first hypothesis is it states that FLP, the faculty of language in the bird sense, is strictly homologous to animal communication. The second hypothesis is it states that FLP is a derived uniquely human adaptation for language. The third hypothesis is it states that only FLN, the faculty of language in the neuron sense, is unique to humans. Okay, the three hypotheses. The first hypothesis, it states that FLP, the faculty of language in the broad sense, is strictly homologous to animal communication. Now, this means that homologous expect to the faculty of language exist in non-human animals. And the second hypothesis about it states that FLP is a derived uniquely human adaptation for language. This meaning, this hypothesis believes that individual traits were subject to natural selection and come to be very specialized for humans. Okay, for the three hypotheses, it states that only FLN, the faculty of language in the narrow sense, is unique to humans. Now, this is hypothesis. It believes that while mechanisms of FLP are present in both humans and non-humans animals, that the computational mechanism of resorption is recently evolved slowly in humans. This is the hypothesis which is most closely linked to the typical theory of universal grammar championed by Chomsky. Okay, let's move to the next slide about the birth of psycholinguistics. The theoretical framework for psycholinguistics began to be developed before the end of the 19th century as the psychology of language. The science of psycholinguistics so-called began in 1936 when Jaap Cantor, a prominent psychologist at the time, used the term psycholinguistic as a description within his book An Objective Psychology of Grammar. However, the term psycholinguistic only came into widespread use in 1946. Okay, the next slide for reference. The next slide reference for my material, and I think that's all. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.